Have you ever wondered why some women leave a mark on a man's soul that no time, distance, or reason can erase? It is not merely the curve of her smile, the allure of her gaze, or the softness of her voice. It is far deeper than the surface, residing in the hidden chambers of emotional mystery, in the uncharted territories of her psyche that a man can sense but never fully map. She exists like a shadow in his consciousness, a presence that stirs both longing and unease, a silent reminder that life contains dimensions he cannot control, cannot dominate, and most terrifyingly, cannot possess. In this intricate dance between the conscious and the unconscious, between attraction and repulsion, he finds himself irresistibly drawn to her, compelled to chase an enigma that both excites and eludes him. There is a rhythm in her silence, a cadence that echoes with the unspoken truths of her inner world. It is here, in the spaces between words, that her power resides. Jung might call it a manifestation of the anima, the inner feminine that every man encounters, sometimes fleetingly, often with awe and fear. When a woman embodies her complexity without apology, she does not merely exist for his consumption. She mirrors his own shadow, reflecting back the fears, desires, and wounds he has long buried. And in seeing fragments of himself he cannot reconcile, he is compelled to return, to linger, to attempt a communion that is both seductive and haunting. The pull is magnetic because it is not about control, possession, or familiarity. It is about confrontation with the profound and often unsettling truths that lie dormant within him. Her mystery is not created through artifice. It is forged in the crucible of self-possession, in the moments she has faced her own chaos, embraced her contradictions, and refused to shrink in the face of societal expectations or the casual judgments of men who mistake attention for understanding. She is an individuation in motion, a living testament to the process of becoming whole, shadow included. And a man, conditioned by both his cultural archetypes and personal insecurities, is drawn to this wholeness because it contrasts so starkly with his own fragmented self. He feels both fear and longing, fear that she will expose the fissures he hides, longing for the authenticity he senses but cannot claim. In essence, she is a mirror he cannot look away from, a reflection of a life he has never dared fully inhabit. Notice how it is often not the woman who pursues, but the man who finds himself ensnared in invisible threads of fascination. He attempts to define her, categorize her, place her into familiar narratives of desire and attachment, yet she defies every expectation. Where others offer predictability, she offers mystery. Where they offer compliance, she offers autonomy. And in this refusal to be tamed, she awakens a primal awareness within him, the acknowledgement that the most intoxicating force is one that cannot be controlled. Marcus Aurelius wrote of this as the tension between external appearances and inner virtue, a man's inability to grasp the depth of a being who has learned the art of self-containment. The more he seeks to capture her essence, the more he encounters his own limitations, his own need for growth, his own unconscious yearnings. Every glance she allows, every fragment of vulnerability she reveals, becomes a map of impossibility, a puzzle that entices him into emotional labyrinths he has never navigated. And yet, paradoxically, it is not suffering he seeks but the thrill of recognition, the subtle intoxication of witnessing someone live fully in the totality of her being. The interplay of presence and absence, intimacy and distance, revelation and concealment, creates a psychological gravity he cannot resist. He becomes tethered not to her physical form, but to the shadow of her depth, the intangible currents that surge beneath her composure. And in this tension, his imagination becomes the stage upon which obsession and admiration collide, where longing mingles with awe, and desire becomes a reflection of his own incomplete integration. She understands that attraction is not about sacrificing selfhood, nor about bending to the rhythm of external expectation. It is about inhabiting her own inner world with sovereignty, about maintaining a quiet authority over the spaces that are hers alone. He perceives this sovereignty instinctively, a subtle, almost imperceptible emanation of psychological authority that triggers both pursuit and introspection. In moments of closeness, he glimpses the wildness of her inner life, the shadowed valleys and luminous peaks, and he recognizes that to truly possess her would be to diminish her essence. Yet the paradox is intoxicating. The less he can control, the more he desires, the more he is compelled to return, even as he knows that complete understanding will forever elude him. Do not mistake this for manipulation. The woman who holds emotional mystery does not play games. She simply exists authentically in a world of projection and expectation. Her depth is a boundary as much as it is an invitation, a declaration that she is not an object of convenience but a sovereign psyche, a constellation of desires, fears, and experiences that intersect with his life only to provoke growth, confrontation, and awakening. And in the wake of her presence, He is left to grapple with himself, to confront the illusions of his own ego, and to navigate the uncharted territories of emotional truth. He cannot forget her because she is not merely another passing figure. She is a catalyst, a mirror, a shadow that will linger long after the encounter has ended. He remembers the weight of her silence, how it carried not emptiness, but a deliberate fullness, as if every pause held centuries of unspoken knowledge. There is an artistry to the way she moves through the world, not in flamboyance, but in a quiet, almost dangerous self-possession that ignites curiosity like flint to steel. Jung would observe that a man's fascination with such a woman is rarely about the woman herself alone. It is about the confrontation with his own unconscious desires and fears. She becomes the stage upon which he projects the unintegrated fragments of his psyche, each interaction a reflection of what he seeks and what he resists in himself. Her presence is a riddle, but not one meant to be solved. It is a mirror, challenging him to reckon with his shadow, to face the raw truths he has long hidden beneath layers of rationalization and social conditioning. In every fleeting connection, she offers glimpses of her inner world, carefully chosen, never given entirely. Her vulnerability is not a surrender, but a selective unveiling, a beacon of authenticity that compels him to confront his own inability to be fully known. He notices how she speaks without begging, laughs without seeking approval, and walks with a quiet confidence that refuses the choreography of neediness. This refusal to submit to external validation resonates at a deep, almost instinctual level. Men are wired to respond to challenge and depth, to a presence that evokes awe and respect simultaneously. When a woman embodies this equilibrium, she becomes a force of gravity, drawing him toward her while simultaneously resisting total claim. It is this balance of accessibility and inaccessibility that fuels obsession and memory alike. Her emotional mystery is compounded by her mastery of boundaries. She understands the subtle power of withholding not as a tactic, but as a natural consequence of self-respect. In doing so, she teaches the unconscious lesson of restraint, that desire intensifies not through surrender, but through measured revelation. Seneca would recognize in her a living demonstration of stoic detachment, a woman whose value is not measured by the attention she receives, but by the integrity with which she inhabits her inner world. Each time he attempts to close the gap between them, he is reminded that true connection cannot be coerced. It must emerge from the alignment of two autonomous souls. Her autonomy is magnetic because it reflects the ultimate truth of human longing. Men are drawn to what challenges their complacency, what demands presence and introspection rather than passive acceptance. Yet fascination is never purely intellectual. It courses through the body, registering as a tension between desire and the unknown. The unpredictability of her reactions, the nuanced way she navigates emotions, triggers a cascade of dopamine in the male brain, a chemical reflection of psychological intrigue. He may try to rationalize it as mere attraction, but the pull is far more profound. It touches the archetypal layers of his psyche, stirring the anima in ways that are both exhilarating and disquieting. In her, he senses the totality of experience, the shadow and the light, the vulnerability and the resilience, the softness and the steel. And because he cannot possess her fully, because he cannot reduce her complexity to a formula or conquest, she lodges herself permanently in his memory, a psychic landmark he cannot erase. Observe the way he ruminates over conversations, replaying moments in which she revealed a fragment of truth and moments she retreated into her own sovereignty. Each memory becomes a meditation on what he has yet to understand about himself. Her absence is not emptiness. It is a presence felt in the gap between longing and comprehension. He is haunted not because she manipulates him, but because she embodies what he cannot yet integrate, the mystery of emotional self-mastery, the courage to face life fully without compromise, and the willingness to honor her own complexity above all else. She is a testament to the power of individuation, a living example of what it means to navigate life without losing oneself in the pursuit of external affirmation. Even when they are apart, he is tethered to her by the gravitational pull of recognition. Each new encounter with the world reminds him of her shadowed brilliance. In strangers, he searches for echoes of her depth. In conversations, he seeks the rhythm of her cadence. In fleeting experiences, he senses the imprint of her sovereignty. And though he may attempt to move on, to convince himself of distraction or replacement, nothing fully satisfies because she has already awakened a latent hunger, a craving for authenticity, emotional richness, and unyielding self-respect that no superficial connection can satiate. She has made him aware of the parts of himself that are asleep, unacknowledged, or fragmented. In that awareness lies the magnetic force he cannot resist, for it is not her alone that calls him back, but the reflection of his own potential wholeness. The paradox of her existence is that the more she cultivates her inner freedom, the more inescapable she becomes to him. Men are drawn to what they cannot conquer because it reflects the inner struggles they must face within themselves. Her mystery is a crucible, refining the unconscious desires, ego projections, and unresolved traumas that surface in his mind when he contemplates her. She is simultaneously muse and mirror, enchantress and initiator, drawing him toward a deeper reckoning with the self. And in this reckoning he cannot help but linger, not out of possession, but out of fascination, not out of control, but out of a profound instinctual recognition of what is rare, luminous, and untamed in the human spirit. He cannot forget her because she embodies the very essence of what he has been missing in himself: integration. She is a living illustration of what it means to embrace the shadow without fear, to walk in the world fully conscious of one's desires and limitations alike. When she moves, she does so with an invisible line connecting her conscious presence to her unconscious depths, an alignment that few ever achieve and even fewer recognize. Every subtle gesture, a tilt of the head, the lingering glance, the carefully measured words, communicates a story of inner sovereignty. And he, whether he knows it or not, is irresistibly drawn to this story because it resonates with the unspoken chapters of his own psyche, the parts of himself he has denied, suppressed, or feared. In her presence, he confronts the tension between who he is and who he could become. There is an element of the forbidden in this attraction, a psychological thrill that arises from the recognition that her autonomy is untouchable. He senses that she exists outside the ordinary realm of influence and expectation, that she cannot be won through charm, coercion, or persistence. This is the very magnetism of emotional mystery. It is a force that operates on the principle of sovereignty, not submission. And it is precisely this unknowability that makes her unforgettable. Each interaction leaves him both exhilarated and unsettled, like standing at the edge of a precipice, aware of the risk, yet unable to resist the pull. The danger is not physical, it is psychological, spiritual, and deeply primal. She challenges him to face the gaps in his own self-awareness, to confront the illusions of control he has relied upon, and to acknowledge the depths of desire that exist beyond surface understanding. Her allure is compounded by the manner in which she navigates her emotional terrain. She does not react with desperation, nor does she capitulate to external pressures. She moves with deliberation, her emotional expressions precise, meaningful, and contained. Each laugh, each sigh, each word is a deliberate note in a symphony he cannot yet comprehend. He is drawn not merely to the melody itself, but to the complexity of its composition, the layers of intention and depth that suggest a life fully inhabited. This is the archetypal dance between the masculine and feminine unconscious. He is the seeker, compelled to explore, to map, to understand, and yet she is the enigma, existing fully on her own terms, a reflection of the life force he both desires and fears. She evokes admiration, longing, and obsession not because she seeks it, but because she refuses it, because she preserves her selfhood even in proximity to him. The power of emotional mystery lies in its ability to awaken reflection. In trying to understand her, he is forced to examine the patterns of his own heart, why he fears abandonment, why he clings to validation, why he chases illusions of control. She becomes a catalyst for psychological awakening, a shadow guide who compels him to confront his own inner contradictions. Modern trauma psychology would note that such encounters illuminate unresolved attachment wounds, unhealed childhood vulnerabilities, and ingrained relational scripts. Jungian analysis would call it an encounter with the anima, the inner feminine projecting guidance, challenge, and reflection simultaneously. And the truth he experiences is intoxicating. No man can fully possess a woman who has claimed herself, and in trying, he confronts the limitations of ego, the boundaries of desire, and the infinite complexity of human experience. In his mind, she occupies both presence and absence simultaneously. Memory, imagination, and longing entwine to form a psychic landscape where she becomes an enduring landmark. He recalls moments when her eyes seemed to hold galaxies, when her laughter resonated with authenticity he had never encountered before, when her silence conveyed wisdom, authority, and depth. Each recollection triggers a blend of fascination and unease, a cocktail of longing and reflection. The pull is addictive not because it is manipulative, but because it is real, raw, and untamed. It awakens his awareness of the parts of himself he has yet to cultivate: courage, self-knowledge, emotional resilience, and the capacity to honor another's wholeness without reducing it to desire or conquest. Even in absence, she shapes his reality. He notices her echoes in other people, other moments, other interactions, but no replication suffices. There is a singularity to her being, an integrity that cannot be duplicated. This singularity becomes a mirror of what he lacks and what he yearns to embody: presence without dependency, depth without pretense, mystery without artifice. In chasing her, he chases a reflection of his own potential, yet he cannot grasp it fully because it is hers and hers alone. Herein lies the paradox. The magnetic pull of emotional mystery is less about possession and more about awakening, less about closeness and more about confrontation, less about understanding and more about reverence for complexity. And so he returns again and again, compelled by the unspoken law of psychic attraction. The woman who has cultivated her depth, who has faced her shadow, and who moves through life with sovereign grace is unforgettable. Not because she demands attention, but because she evokes reflection, challenges projection, and inspires recognition of the vast, uncharted territories within the self. The pull is eternal, because it is archetypal, timeless, and profound, a call to transformation as much as to desire, a summons to consciousness as much as to longing. She exists not for him but for herself, and in that existence, he cannot help but be drawn, haunted, and awakened. There is a sacred tension in the way he experiences her, an almost gravitational force that oscillates between desire and reverence. He feels the need to close the distance, to claim what cannot be claimed, yet each attempt reveals the contours of his own incompleteness. In her, he sees the embodiment of individuation, a life fully realized, shadow and light integrated, ego balanced by self-awareness. She does not seek validation, nor does she bend to the expectations of those around her. Instead, she moves with a quiet, unassailable authority that comes from knowing herself intimately. This authority is magnetic because it mirrors the part of him that longs for wholeness, for mastery over his own impulses, for courage to confront the unknown within himself. He cannot forget her, because she reminds him of what he has yet to become, what he has yet to claim within his own inner world. Her mystery is alive in the subtleties, in the way she listens without judgment, in the glimmer of curiosity that dances in her gaze, in the rhythm of her speech that hints at depths beyond comprehension. She leaves traces, not overt signs, but echoes in thought and feeling that linger long after she has departed. These traces are the language of emotional gravity, a dialect written in shadow, longing, and recognition. He experiences a compulsion to interpret them, to decode her essence, yet the very act of decoding diminishes nothing of her power. She is a testament to the fact that fascination is born not from proximity or certainty, but from the interplay of absence and presence, of revealed and concealed truths. In her, he encounters the sublime paradox. The more he seeks to possess, the more he encounters the infinite, and the more he is reminded of his own limitations. She is both muse and teacher, guiding without instruction, awakening without insistence. In modern psychology, this could be described as an encounter with the anima in its most potent form, a mirror of emotional authenticity that compels him to confront unresolved patterns, latent desires, and shadowed fears. In her presence, he is both mesmerized and unsettled, compelled to pursue yet challenged to reflect. Every shared glance, every measured word, becomes an initiatory act, pulling him into a deeper understanding of himself. Jung would note that this is not attraction as mere passion, but as an encounter with psychic truth, a meeting of consciousness and unconsciousness where growth, transformation, and longing converge. And because he cannot master or simplify her essence, she imprints herself upon his psyche with an intensity that defies rational explanation. The paradox of emotional mystery is that it thrives in absence as much as in presence. He recalls fleeting interactions, fragments of laughter, a pause that hinted at untold stories, a glance that seemed to penetrate to the core of his being. These fragments are not random, they are the architecture of magnetic intrigue. Each memory is infused with a tension of unfulfilled recognition, a pull that is both psychic and visceral. In seeking to understand her, he encounters the contours of his own incompleteness, the gaps in his self-knowledge, the shadows he has long avoided. She is unforgettable because she is not a reflection of his desire alone, but a reflection of what he has yet to integrate, a living reminder of the power of self-possession and emotional sovereignty. She does not chase, nor does she need to. Her strength lies in the refusal to compromise her depth for the sake of affection or approval. And here lies the ultimate allure. Men are drawn to what they cannot possess fully, to what challenges their complacency, to what forces confrontation with their own ego and unresolved desires. Her presence is a paradoxical combination of approach and retreat, of revelation and concealment, a magnetic dance that awakens fascination, longing, and introspection in equal measure. He is compelled to return again and again, not merely by desire, but by recognition of his own incompleteness, his own shadows, and the infinite possibilities of self-realization. The magnetic pull she exerts is inseparable from the power of her own inner life. She has walked through fire, faced her fears, acknowledged her darkness, and emerged sovereign. In every interaction, she communicates, without words, that she belongs to herself first, and that all connections must honor that fact. He senses this instinctively. Any attempt to impose control or expectation is met with a subtle resistance, a quiet boundary that only deepens the allure. His attraction is not to a body, a smile, or a fleeting moment. It is to the living manifestation of psychological wholeness, a human being who has dared to traverse her own depths and emerge whole, unfragmented, and unapologetically sovereign. He cannot forget her because she has become a touchstone for everything he has yet to claim within himself. Her presence illuminates the shadowed corners of his psyche, reveals the illusions of control he has clung to, and awakens a longing for authenticity that cannot be quelled by superficial connection. She is a paradox of accessibility and inaccessibility, of intimacy and autonomy, of shadow and light. And it is precisely this paradox that creates the enduring magnetism, the unforgettable imprint that lingers long after the encounter has passed, echoing in thought, in feeling, and in desire. In seeking her, he is ultimately seeking himself, the wholeness she embodies, the courage she exercises, and the mystery she preserves. There comes a moment, often unrecognized, when he realizes that she cannot be possessed, not in the conventional sense, not by any measure of conquest, persuasion, or desire. This is the juncture where fascination transcends infatuation, where obsession becomes reflection, and where longing transforms into reverence. She exists as a living paradox, both intimately close and impossibly distant, a presence that illuminates the voids within him even as it excites the longing that he cannot satisfy. Carl Jung would call this the encounter with the archetypal feminine in its most potent form, the anima that demands acknowledgement, introspection, and integration. Every attempt to reduce her to familiarity only magnifies her power, because she embodies the totality of being, the shadow, the light, the chaos, and the calm, in a way that is undiminished by external interpretation. He is haunted not by her physical form, but by the psychological reality she represents: autonomy, depth, and emotional self-mastery. In her absence, he experiences echoes of her presence, a fleeting smile remembered, a glance recalled, the subtle cadence of her voice replayed in the corridors of his mind. These fragments are charged with a tension of unpossessed power, and each recollection is an initiation into the truth that the most magnetic women are unforgettable precisely because they cannot be fully known. Modern trauma-informed psychology would recognize in his obsession an activation of attachment wounds, a stirring of longing for the wholeness and emotional security she exemplifies. Jung would observe that she awakens his unconscious in ways that compel growth and self-exploration, that push him to confront the dissonance between his egoic illusions and his deeper capacity for integration. Her mystery is a deliberate architecture, not a whimsical artifact of circumstance. She cultivates her depths consciously, engaging with her shadows, honoring her vulnerabilities, and embracing the complexities that most fear to face. Her strength is silent, yet it resonates with an almost gravitational force that draws him toward self-awareness as much as toward desire. Each boundary she maintains, each subtle act of emotional sovereignty, communicates that she is a being unto herself, and that connection must emerge from mutual respect and recognition, not from submission or dependency. This realization is unsettling for him, because it challenges his habitual modes of pursuit and possession. Yet it is precisely this challenge that renders her unforgettable. He cannot escape the magnetic pull because it is tethered to his own unfinished evolution, to the truths he has long avoided, and to the potentials he has yet to claim. The tension she evokes is not merely intellectual, nor purely emotional. It is deeply archetypal, stirring the core of his psyche in ways that logic cannot contain. He experiences a mingling of fear and desire, admiration and envy, longing and reverence. Her presence triggers reflection, exposing the fissures in his ego, illuminating the unintegrated aspects of his personality, and presenting a vision of what human wholeness can look like. Her influence extends beyond moments of interaction. It infiltrates his imagination, coloring his perceptions, and reshaping his emotional landscape. Every encounter, no matter how brief, becomes a lesson in projection, shadow work, and the alchemy of attraction. She teaches without instruction, awakens without demand, and compels growth without coercion. He notices the paradox of her availability, close enough to touch, yet always maintaining a space that cannot be invaded. This paradox is central to her magnetism. He perceives that intimacy is not the surrender of self, but the meeting of two sovereign presences, each fully responsible for their inner world. She models the integration of the feminine archetype in its most potent form, assertive yet tender, autonomous yet relational, mysterious yet transparent in her authenticity. He cannot forget her because she embodies a living truth, that attraction is not about possession, but about recognition, not about control but about resonance, not about comfort but about awakening. Even his attempts to move on, to displace attention, or to substitute her presence with others, fail. Her image persists, not as a phantom of obsession, but as a reminder of the profound pull of emotional authenticity. He recognizes, often unconsciously, that what he is drawn to is not her exterior, but the embodiment of her inner mastery, her shadow reconciled, her autonomy intact, her self-respect unshaken. In this recognition, he is confronted with a mirror of what he has yet to achieve, the courage to face his own depths, the discipline to integrate his shadows, the clarity to navigate desire without dependency. She is unforgettable because she is whole, and he is yet in the process of becoming. And so he returns to her in memory, in imagination, and in longing, compelled by a force beyond reason, beyond convenience, and beyond mere physical attraction. Her magnetism is eternal because it is archetypal, psychological, and deeply human. She reminds him that desire without understanding is fleeting, that connection without integrity is hollow, and that the most enduring attraction is born from the resonance of souls rather than the convenience of bodies. He cannot forget her because she has awakened something fundamental within him, the call to authenticity, the courage to face the shadow, and the longing for wholeness that only true emotional mastery can evoke. She lingers in his consciousness like a melody he cannot hum, a landscape he cannot fully map, a flame that burns without consuming. Her allure is not a superficial charm, but a profound interplay of light and shadow, a living testament to the psychological truth that the most magnetic forces are those that cannot be reduced to mere possession or understanding. In every thought of her, he confronts the unknown within himself, the parts of his psyche long neglected, the desires unacknowledged, the fears carefully hidden. She is both a reflection and a catalyst, a mirror of potential wholeness and a provocation toward growth, forcing him to reckon with the incompleteness he has carried, often unknowingly, through his life. Her absence does not weaken her influence. It intensifies it, for the mind seeks what cannot be fully grasped, and the heart craves what challenges its complacency. Her presence is a subtle orchestration of emotional sovereignty. She moves through the world aware of her own value, unwilling to dilute herself to meet external expectations. There is a rhythm to her autonomy, a cadence that is felt more than seen, understood more than spoken. This rhythm triggers something deep within him, a combination of awe, longing, and the unsettling awareness that she cannot be tamed, categorized, or controlled. He is drawn to her because she reflects the possibility of integration, the alignment of self that he has yet to achieve. In the shadow of her completeness, his unfinished self becomes visible, tangible, impossible to ignore. And it is this reflection, more than her physical presence, that renders her unforgettable, that makes her a psychological force impossible to erase. Every interaction, every fragment of shared time, becomes a layered experience of revelation and concealment. She offers glimpses of vulnerability, carefully calibrated, never fully surrendering, never seeking to please. In doing so, she teaches a profound lesson. Intimacy is not compromise, nor is it submission. It is a meeting of two sovereign presences, each holding space for their own depths while acknowledging the other's. He perceives this instinctively, even if he cannot articulate it, and it stirs both admiration and a subtle fear. Her emotional intelligence, her self-possession, her willingness to embrace her own shadow without apology, is a force that unsettles him precisely because it challenges the egoic patterns he relies upon for security. He is drawn irresistibly into a tension that is at once intoxicating and instructive, a psychic gravity that demands reflection, presence, and self-exploration. Jungian analysis would suggest that her impact on him is an encounter with the anima in its most potent form, an archetypal feminine presence that awakens unconscious desires, exposes projections, and provokes transformation. In modern terms, this is the activation of deep relational and emotional intelligence within the psyche, a recognition that attraction is not simply a matter of physical or romantic pursuit, but of resonance, reflection, and the subtle interplay of conscious and unconscious forces. She is unforgettable because she triggers a confrontation with his own incompleteness, offering both challenge and illumination. Her magnetism is not a strategy, nor is it performative. It is the natural emanation of a woman fully engaged with her own inner life, unafraid of depth, complexity, or the reflection of shadows in others. The paradox of her influence lies in her simultaneous closeness and distance. She is approachable yet untouchable, intimate yet sovereign, revealing yet unknowable. This paradox is the heartbeat of emotional mystery, the secret architecture of psychological magnetism. He cannot fully understand her because she does not exist for his comprehension. She exists for her own completeness, and in witnessing that completeness, he is compelled to confront the incompleteness within himself. Each attempt to possess, to categorize, to rationalize her presence, only reinforces the truth of her autonomy, intensifying the pull and the memory. In his mind, she becomes eternal, not as an object of desire alone, but as a mirror of possibility, a symbol of what is attainable only through self-mastery, courage, and the integration of shadow. Even when other relationships enter his life, even when time or distance intervenes, she remains vivid. The traces of her influence are embedded in his reflections, in his longing, and in the subtle recalibration of his expectations and desires. She has awakened in him the understanding that the deepest attraction is not for what is seen, but for what is sensed, the currents of authenticity, the rhythms of emotional intelligence, the power of a psyche that is fully realized. And because she embodies this fully, because she navigates her inner world with sovereignty and grace, he cannot forget her. His memory of her is not a memory of possession, but a memory of potential, a reminder of the resonance between depth and desire, freedom and fascination, shadow and light. In essence, she is unforgettable because she embodies the principles of psychological and emotional integrity. She is whole, unfragmented, and sovereign. Her magnetism is eternal because it is rooted not in artifice, but in truth, not in submission but in mastery, not in fleeting charm, but in the profound architecture of a life fully realized. He cannot forget her because she has awakened him, reflected him, challenged him, and inspired him in ways that are as compelling as they are unsettling. She is the magnetic force of emotional mystery personified, a living testament to the power of self-possession and the irresistible pull of archetypal depth. And in the culmination of her presence, or rather her influence, he is left to reckon with a profound paradox. The more he chases, the less he controls. The more he observes, the more he awakens. She exists as a living embodiment of the principle that attraction, when rooted in mystery and authenticity, cannot be forced, owned, or contained. She is unforgettable not because of manipulation, nor because of overt beauty, but because she mirrors the eternal tension between longing and understanding, presence and absence, shadow and light. In every interaction, she teaches a silent lesson, that the deepest bonds, the most intense fascinations, emerge not from possession, but from resonance, from the encounter of two autonomous energies, each fully realized, each fully responsible for the sacred terrain of the self. He cannot forget her because she has revealed something fundamental about his own psyche, that desire is not merely for another, but for the parts of himself that he has neglected, suppressed, or denied. She acts as both mirror and teacher, reflecting the incompleteness, the unintegrated shadows, and the latent potential he has carried quietly for years. In her, he sees a vision of what it means to navigate life fully, to embrace complexity without apology, and to honor the boundaries of the self while remaining open to connection. Modern psychology would describe this as the activation of both the conscious and unconscious mind, a confrontation with unresolved attachment patterns, and a subtle recalibration of relational intelligence. Jung would call it the encounter with the anima, the archetypal feminine that catalyzes introspection, transformation, and deep longing. Her magnetism is amplified by absence as much as presence. When she is not there, her influence persists, shaping his thoughts, his desires, and even his imagination. He reconstructs her in memory, embellishes the moments they shared, and carries the tension of her autonomy in every reflection. It is not a haunting born of obsession alone, but of recognition. He recognizes in her the possibility of integration, the manifestation of depth, and the courage to claim one's full self without apology or compromise. Each memory, each imagined encounter, each fleeting recollection, is charged with a mixture of awe, longing, and reverence. She lingers because she embodies a psychological truth that transcends the immediate, that attraction rooted in emotional and psychological wholeness is unforgettable because it resonates with the deepest parts of the self. The intensity of his fascination is also a function of her integrity. She does not yield to convenience, expectation, or external pressure. She moves through the world with an invisible line connecting conscious intention to unconscious depth, aligning her shadow, her desires, and her self-respect. Men are instinctively attuned to this alignment, even when they cannot articulate it. Her aura of sovereignty triggers reflection, curiosity, and admiration. He finds himself compelled not merely to be near her, but to understand, and yet, the very act of understanding reveals the limits of comprehension. She is unknowable because she is whole, and her wholeness cannot be captured by observation or desire. This is the essence of emotional mystery, the recognition that some forces are irresistible precisely because they are independent of possession or control. In every encounter, she presents the paradoxical blend of approach and retreat, of revelation and concealment. Her laughter may hint at vulnerability, her gaze may suggest intimacy, her words may expose a truth long buried. Yet none of it is given freely to be owned. All is offered in alignment with her inner world, her boundaries, and her autonomy. He is compelled to return again and again, drawn not by manipulation but by resonance, the psychic recognition that she embodies something profound and unattainable in any other context. She awakens desire, curiosity, and reflection simultaneously, a triad of forces that ensures her imprint remains indelible. Ultimately, he cannot forget her because she has become a lodestar of possibility. She embodies emotional sovereignty, psychological depth, and the integration of shadow and light. Her presence challenges him, awakens him, and inspires him to confront the uncharted territories of his own psyche. He lingers in her orbit not out of control, not out of possession, but because she reflects a truth he cannot escape, that the deepest attraction is rooted in wholeness, autonomy, and the courageous embrace of complexity. In this recognition, he encounters the eternal paradox of human longing, that the forces which captivate most powerfully are those that cannot be claimed, only reflected, honored, and admired from a place of reverence. And she, entirely sovereign, moves through the world with a quiet knowledge that her power lies not in coercion, but in the integrity of her own being. She does not need to manipulate, because truth is magnetic. She does not need to beg, because presence is irresistible. She is the living proof that emotional mystery is not a game, but an alignment of self, the kind of alignment that leaves an indelible mark on every soul that dares to witness it. He cannot forget her because she is unforgettable, and her unforgettable nature is the reflection of the wholeness she has cultivated within herself, the sovereignty she has claimed, and the courage she has exercised in embracing the full spectrum of her being. And in the quiet aftermath of fascination, when the echoes of longing have settled into clarity, she stands unshaken, whole, and untouchable, not because she is distant, but because she has never needed to prove herself to anyone. He may recall her endlessly, trace the outlines of her voice in memory, and linger in the shadows of what once passed between them, yet she remains beyond his grasp, not out of cruelty, but out of sovereignty. This is the ultimate truth of emotional mystery. It is not a tool to ensnare or captivate, but a reflection of self-mastery, a testament to the power of integration, shadow acceptance, and unwavering self-worth. She has moved through life in alignment with her own depths, and in doing so, she leaves an indelible mark not because of who she let him be, but because of who she is, complete, autonomous, radiant. He learns, if slowly, that the pull he feels is not merely a desire for her, but a call to his own awakening. She has become a mirror, reflecting the incompleteness, the shadows, and the unclaimed potential he must now confront within himself. Her presence teaches that connection does not demand surrender, that intimacy does not require the dissolution of self, and that fascination is born not from manipulation, but from alignment, authenticity, and depth. In recognizing this, he understands that she cannot be forgotten because she is not simply a woman. She is a force of nature, an archetype of wholeness, and a living testament to what it means to move through life untamed, unfragmented, and unapologetically sovereign. For her, life is not a series of conquests or validations. It is a journey of self-discovery, shadow integration, and the cultivation of inner freedom. Every glance, every word, every deliberate act of presence and absence is an articulation of that freedom, a signal that she belongs to herself first, and that all encounters must honor that truth. He is compelled time and again, not by the superficial allure of her body or charm, but by the magnetic resonance of a psyche fully realized, by the quiet power of someone who has faced the darkness within and emerged luminous. She is unforgettable because she embodies what so few ever achieve: mastery over self, clarity of desire, and the courage to exist without apology in a world that constantly demands compromise. And in the end, she no longer exists to him as an object of longing, but as a symbol of possibility, a reflection of wholeness, and a testament to the irresistible force of integrity and emotional sovereignty. He may return in thought, in memory, and in imagination, but she remains unclaimed, untouched, and gloriously free, a reminder that the most magnetic presence in life is one that cannot be owned, only witnessed, honored, and revered. She has awakened him, challenged him, and inspired him, leaving behind a resonance that will endure as long as he seeks authenticity, integration, and depth within himself. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.